Here we are with episode 13, and I want to start it out with talking about the smoothie that Troy threw in anger, because I had busted him on all the cheating, and that I had already talked to a brother about it, because this time he wasn't able to keep it in the family and keep it on the down low, no pun intended. It was out. It was just, and I feel bad for that part when you're dealing with all this stuff in the marriage, but it's also this whole thing of the fear of getting disfellowshipped and all this. But as a Jehovah's Witness, your thinking is different. Your thinking is trained very sin, and you have to confess. It's very everything has to be brought to light and you can't harbor it. So every single person is trained to not keep sin hidden. That's a whole thing that comes with this religion, that if I was not to speak out, I would be guilty, and then it would cost him his everlasting life, all this brainwashed stuff. Well, anyways, here's the thing. He threw that smoothie at the wall, and I looked at it, and I'm I'm not cleaning that smoothie up. He threw it, he can clean it up. I did pack my bags at the time, and I did go to my mom's. Our vacation was a few weeks after, so I technically separated for a while. And when he would go to work, I would go over to the house and be with the kids, and that smoothie was on the wall. And the smoothie was on the wall the next day, and the smoothie was on the wall the day after that. And after a few days, there started to be ants. And I'm not even really living in the house at the time, only he. But I went and I cleaned it up. And that sums up our relationship right there. The fact that I went and he saw it day after day after day. And, he's done all this crap. And here I am cleaning up the smoothie. And even during this time, we would kind of talk, and he did not want to get divorced. He always would say, I never want to get divorced. And in hindsight, I think that he really liked being married and having the picture perfect family, wife, kids, going to church. It's such a great facade, and you have recognition and stuff. And I also think he got a huge kick out of being secretive and sly. I don't think that he could really enjoy this as much being single and just live his life. It's so much more of a thrill to him to do it sneakily and cheat and have to try to figure out how to do this secretly. It's so messed up. As a matter of fact, one day in therapy, he said to the therapist, when everyone's happy, when the wife's happy, when the kids are happy, when work is good, I feel like I need to rock the boat to shake things up. I don't even know what to do with that. That was kind of shocking. I'm just what? Why? How? Ooh, what? But it kind of all these little things gave glimpses into his internal thinking, because he put on an act a lot of times, and especially people at our Kingdom Hall, they really saw him as this super nice guy. And even when he got disfellowshipped, someone came up to me and said, I'm so shocked it's him. I would have actually pictured you getting disfellowshipped over him. I just never saw him being disfellowshipped ever. He's so nice. I'm wow. Wow. It was so crazy. But he did put on a pretty good facade. And when he would comment, it felt so genuine and from the heart. It could really blind you. You just thought so when people comment at the Kingdom Hall, they kind of give something that speaks to their heart from the Bible or something. And he could just, it was golden boy. You were just wow, this is so beautiful how he can speak and praise God and all this. It's so hard to imagine that he then has such a double life. So hard to imagine. And then the last few years till everything came out, my anxiety started to just be through the roof, nonstop, all the time. and I started like picking my skin, so my whole face was like raw because I was just like picking, and it was just a nervous wreck. And here's something, like, that was just during that time. I haven't done that for years. I don't even understand how I used to do it, but it was just the stress of everything and the anxiety. It just was really crazy. So when I would kind of like talk to Troy after all this like incident happened, and I'm staying at my mom's with the kids, but I'm going over to talk to him. And I remember thinking, he has no empathy for me, and he has like no, like, he doesn't regret anything. He doesn't feel like that he put me through the ringer, and really the kids too. He just doesn't really even care. That's what it felt like. And I couldn't really understand it. And I kept saying to my mom, like, I feel like he has to do it right. Like, he has to do it right. Like, don't we have to, like, salvage our family? Like, he has to do it right. And I wanted to fight so badly for our family. And I think it has to do with this life decision that I made. You know, I just, like, didn't want my kids to go through a divorce how I had gone through it. So I just felt like we have to, like, if he doesn't want to get divorced, then somehow we have to make this work. And so I kept saying he has to do it right. And one day my mom looked at me and she goes, he doesn't want to. Like, true words. And it's funny how sometimes like a little sentence stays with you, because dang, she was so right, you know, like, and it was depressing too. But that was really later. Right now we're post, like, he's getting disfellowshipped, and then we're about to go on vacation, and he's actually getting announced at the Kingdom Hall while we're on vacation. And then our oldest was kind of old enough where, you know, you had to, like, he had to be informed and kind of know what's going on, because they would know something's going on. And Troy sat down with him with the Bible and explained some things. Explained it very nicely, actually very kindly, but also totally not really the truth. I remember thinking, that's not really what happened, but whatever. And I think it was like shocking for our kiddo too. Plus, my dad was disfellowshipped when I was a kid, and I remember just how hard that was for me. I felt like the whole congregation shunned me too, and they did. Nobody talked to me for 2 years. So you are feeling it when you're the kid or the spouse. You totally feel it. You feel like kind of soft shunned, or like a little bit like lower. You just don't feel like, I hate to say it, but there's ranks, you know, and you're definitely not like an elder's family or something. You're lowly, and you feel like people treat you like with the guy or the dad or the husband who's disfellowshipped. So I know that my especially my oldest felt that too. And our Kingdom Hall, in general, we had a lot of nice people. There was one dude, he was a big guy, and Troy had gotten disfellowshipped. We're trying to make it work. He was sick that day, though, and I was at the meeting with the kids. And here, like, my husband just got disfellowship. We're going through all this stuff, but I'm at the meeting, and I feel like, okay, I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to go to the meeting with the kids, drag myself there. It was an evening meeting. And this brother started giving my oldest like wet willies all the time. So, you know, it's like where you lick your finger and you stick it in someone's ear. And I was kind of annoyed, and I told my son, I'm like, don't go near him. He's weird. It's this big older guy. And he was kind of like a controversial person already. Like, he would fight with people. It's just bad vibes. Trust your gut. So my oldest is like, during the meeting, had to go to the bathroom. I went with him with the other kids, and I see that the older guy's at the water fountain bending over. And this all happened so quickly. And this is a side story, and I'm just kind of explaining like what it's like to be in a cult, and the kind of like the oppression that you feel, or like this mental prison, and the things you endure. It all contributes to how long you stay in these abusive relationships. And also, like, how you're just beaten down over the time, So this little side story has to do with that and like what I went through. So this older jerk went to bend over at the water fountain, and my oldest thinks, this is my opportunity. I can now give him a wet willy back because he's like leaning over and he's like my height and I can reach him. My son's 8 at the time. So he gives him a wet willy, and I'm watching this happen so fast. And the old guy turns and looks at my kid. His face gets beet red, and he smacks my 8-year-old son in the stomach. This is during the meeting. My kid falls on the floor, crying. My other kids start bawling their eyes out because we all saw it. There was an elder who jumped up and he goes, did he just hit him? Did he just hit him? And I'm like in tears, like he did. He did. He hit him. And I'm just besides myself. And here, intermission, for real, I know I should have called the cops. I regret not having called the cops. What a mistake. I'm hurt and furious, and the dude runs back into the main hall, grabs his wife, yanks her out of the auditorium during meeting, and they leave. And like the brothers come and talk to me, and I'm sobbing, my kid's sobbing. My kid is okay, but the next day I go to the doctors just to make sure, because this guy's like 6 foot and I'm still in complete shock. And the doctor cleared him. I was a little annoyed because I felt like when you're in a cult, you feel like your hands are so tied. Like you feel like you can't call the cops because as a Jehovah's Witness, you don't call the cops on your brother, all that baloney, But I really kind of hoped that the doctor would say we need to report this. And she didn't. She's like, he's fine. It's all okay. I don't know why. And it's my own fault for looking for guidance with the doctor when really I should have done it. But also that night of the meeting, I get home, I'm a wreck, and Troy's mad at me. And he was always like that. If something happened, he was mad at me. I don't know how. I don't know what I did, but he's mad at me. And he we're back together at this point, and he does absolutely not want to like call the police or do anything because he's now disfellowshipped, so he can't even really do anything or talk to the guy. It's like this weird situation to be in. And also, you're already like shunned, so you feel like you don't want to rattle the boat. Well, I had one friend, kudos to her. She doesn't have kids, but she had this like burning sense of righteousness, and she wasn't even in my hall. But she was so angry about this situation. She was so angry that she went to the circuit overseer, who just looked at her. And then she went to the elders in my hall, and she's like, this is not okay. Like, how is this happening? And the elder said to her, the elder who doesn't have kids, never had kids, said to her, her kids are so wild. He deserved it. Can you imagine that? And that is how Jehovah's Witnesses feel. They're not like God's little children, like boys who are 8-year-old kids who are just kids who are normal. And I will say this, we were pretty like normal in raising them. We were not super strict. They are wild. They're kids. We kind of let them be free in a lot of ways. Like I remember at the assembly, there was a family sitting in front of us, and like my little one was the same age as this kid, and mine's like sitting next to me, kind of like bouncing in his chair and like happy. And the family in front of us, they had him in one of those chairs strapped in, and his legs were bare because he was wearing these like little shorts. He may have been 2, and mine was 2 too. And the mom slapped him at the assembly with a wooden cook spoon on the bare leg for not even doing anything. He wasn't doing anything. It was just training him to like sit like a robot, basically. And I'm just like, wow. So in that regard, I'm so glad, even for my family and stuff, we're so much more lax than most witnesses already. So thank goodness for that. But here, the sister went to the elder in my hall and he goes, the little kid deserved it. Like my son deserved it. Can you imagine? I mean, no wonder there's all this child abuse in this organization, because if that's how they feel about kids, how is that possible? How is this like this huge victim shaming in this organization? Like, I don't even get it. So then the brothers meet with the guy who hit my son, and he basically gets a slap on the wrist, and they say like, oh, you just have to like comment more or something. You know how they want you to be more spiritual, so comment more. So at the next meeting, he's sitting there and he's commenting and gets called on for a bunch of comments on love and forgiveness. I mean, you're sitting in that auditorium and you're just like, am I in the wrong movie here? Like, what the heck is happening? What is happening? I can't even like fathom. And I went home and I said to my mom, I'm like, I don't think I can go to that Kingdom Hall anymore. I don't even think it's healthy for my son to have to go to that Kingdom Hall anymore, because we have to sit there and then listen to this dude talk about love and peace and forgiveness. And I'm like, I can't do it. I am so angry. And I don't think like this is right for the kids. This is such a messed up situation. And the weirdest part is, like, a few meetings went by and I really started feeling like people were blaming us. How is that possible? How? Only in a cult, I swear. When you read Leah Remini's Scientology book, this feeling that I'm feeling, it's so hard to explain, but when you grew up in an extreme household that is kind of like cultish, or in a super religious family or something, you know what I'm talking about. Because Leah Remini went to Tom Cruise's wedding. And at Tom Cruise's wedding, the whole event was crazy. People were acting so nutty, and she says they weren't acting like how Scientologists were supposed to act. So she's running around like, what is happening here? How's nobody upset? And it's because everybody's like a robot. Because in all seriousness, that guy who hit my son isn't acting like a Christian. Jesus would have never done that. And yet you're like, how come nobody's mad about this? How come nothing is done? How come he didn't get in more trouble? You're just like bewildered. And Leah Remini explains this so good. If you want to read her book, it was eye-opening, because I felt the exact same way. So at this point, I'm like, I think it would be really good for us to move, because there's really not like a congregation we can go to, and maybe we can move to like a town over or something, because this is crazy and I cannot be at the same meeting with this man. And to this day, I wish I could sue him. Too many years have passed, but like, what a jerk. And the CEO came, and basically right before the CEO came to our hall, his wife wrote us a card of apology. He didn't write it. His wife wrote it. And it was like weeks had gone by. And you're just like so upset that you just like had to endure this. And the elder that I was close to, he was on vacation when all this happened. So when he came back, I told him everything. And basically you get the same old runaround. Leave it in Jehovah's hands. And I'm like, this is nuts. This is nuts. So if you're mad about all this, I completely understand. I am mad about it too. Now that I'm out, I wish I would have handled it completely differently. But alas, at the time, I was in a cult, in a high control group. My whole community was part of that cult. But at the end of the day, your kids come first. And I did learn that from that. And I have to say that for every parent who stands up for their kids with all these sexual abuse cases, and then the parents end up getting shunned from the religion, kudos to you parents, because you're on the right side of history. You stood up for your kids, because your kids are your flesh and blood. And I'm so happy that so many parents stick to their kids, and I should have done better. And really, it's like so sad when victims get re-abused and all these abuse victims come out and tell their story, and then they aren't believed, or they're punished, and they're even disfellowshipped sometimes. Because I kind of felt like too, because I felt like I wasn't really letting this go, and I was really upset that they had me a little bit on their radar too for being like rebellious and for speaking up. You know, you kind of get reprimanded, like let it go, leave it in Jehovah's hands and stuff. And it leads to disfellowshipping in some cases too when you don't shut up. But I was just having a hard time with all of this. It was a lot. All right, we'll see you tomorrow for the next episode.